but society teaches men to man up, tough it out, and to keep a lid on it. Today, we're breaking the silence and offering up a safe space because talking about your mental health doesn't make you weak. And no questions are off limits on this episode of Ask the Doc.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Welcome to Ask the Doc, the show where we encourage our viewers to send in their health questions. I'm Dr. Buxani-Mirpuri, licensed mental health therapist. Our first viewer question comes from our very own website, allhealthtv.com, and it's from Dana. Hey, Dr. Buxani, my boyfriend Zeke came back recently from a tour of duty where his unit saw some action. He's been having nightmares and yelling in his sleep. Whenever I ask him about it, he clams up and deflects. Why is it so hard for him to open up about how he's feeling? Oh, wow. Dana, thank you so much for writing in, and I hope Zeke knows how lucky he is to have you in his life. Sounds like Zeke is displaying some symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. We often see that when people come back from combat. The problem, though, is societal expectations that associate vulnerability or emotional expressions with weakness make it really, really hard for men to talk about what they're going through. Men have pressures to be strong and stoic, and talking about it is none of those, right? Plus, not sure if Zeke has had some childhood experiences, maybe some negative experiences when he's actually expressed his emotions, thus resulting in him suppressing it. So as to avoid the negative feedback or the negative consequences of expression. I encourage you to keep encouraging him to seek help, because that's the only way he's going to be able to heal from the trauma that he experienced, and obviously then help manage some of these symptoms, really challenging situations that he's experiencing. Thank you so much again, Dana. Let's take our next question. And our next question comes through us from our Facebook page. Bridget says, Dr. Buxani, I know this is very cliche, but my husband Lars has had some losses lately, his mother, his job, and his joie de vivre. I butchered that, but his joy of life. How can I, as his partner, support him going through his mental health struggle? Bridget, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It does sound like Lars is really having a difficult time and struggling. Things that you can do to help Lars. Firstly, and most importantly, please listen and validate what he is going through. And validate it non-judgmentally. We've already talked about the societal pressures on men to, just hold up emotions, not talk about what they're feeling, primarily because they feel judged. So listen to him, validate what he's going through non-judgmentally. Show physical affection. Offer compassion. Compassion is one of those gifts that I think every human being needs to give to another human being. So please offer compassion to what he's going through, his symptoms, but also the situations in life that he's going through. Now, very important, allow him space and know when to step in, right? It's a delicate balance. It's a dance of the push and pull. But if you push him too hard, he may resent it. So know when to step in, but also know when to step back and give him his space. And finally, show faith and confidence in his ability to be able to heal and deal with his situation, which will also boost his self-esteem and make him feel better, thus probably helping the healing process. Hope that was helpful. Let's see our next question, and it comes to us from our Facebook page again. Hello, Dr. Buxani. It took just short of forever, but I finally convinced my husband, Lamar, to go to therapy. Yay! He's got some anger issues and he needs to address them. He's kind of nervous, but never having gone myself, I'm not sure how to prepare him for his first session. Any advice would be appreciated. First of all, kudos to you. Thank you so much. And I am so amazed how you got him to go, and really thankful that you were able to do that. Let's talk about first session. Even before that, actually, let's talk about therapy in general, right? So one of the things that I always tell my clients is the most important thing in a therapy session or in that whole situation is actually the therapeutic relationship. So the relationship between the therapist and the client. We therapists come from all modalities or schools of thought, right? So solution focused, cognitive behavior therapy, dialectic behavior therapy. And really, what research has found is one of the most important things that actually makes it possible for us to see any success in our clients is the therapeutic relationship. So ask him to reflect after his first session on how he felt in his time with the therapist. Of course, not only in the first session, but give it about 2 or 3 sessions, but he really needs to focus on his feelings when he's with the therapist and how he feels, if he feels a connection there. Remember, the first session is an intake, right? So a lot of it is going to be gathering information on the part of the therapist. It's not really therapy. Therapy starts maybe after the second or third session, after the goals have been set by by him and the therapist in collaboration. Therapy is a journey into himself. Please encourage him to be open and honest, and that's the only way that he's actually going to be able to find therapy helpful. I hope that helped. In case you missed it the first time, here's another opportunity to find where you can send us your questions.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Welcome back. We have our first Instagram question of the day. Yay. All right, let's see. We have Walter writing in, "Hey, Dr. B, I've been hearing a lot about something called toxic masculinity lately, not pertaining to me, of course. As such, I'd like to know what it is and what kind of impact does it have exactly on men's mental health. I'd love to get your thoughts on this." Walter, thank you so much. Great question. Yes, that's a word that's been floating around, and not necessarily in a good way. Let's talk about what it is, right? So toxic masculinity is really a set of very harmful expectations that society places on men that are associated with this idea of masculinity. The expectation that men are supposed to be tough, men are supposed to have more power and control and more money. They, all of that is a part of this, ideal of toxic masculinity. What happens as a result of this is men are not taking care of themselves because they feel like they have to constantly perform, constantly prove something, right? So obviously then that results in lack of self-care, often shutting themselves off from loved ones, right? Because again, if they talk about their feelings, they're weak, right? So, and that's not what men do. So they're not talking about how they feel. They're not talking, they're not being vulnerable enough to have those really close and healthy relationships. Now, what that does is it increases depression. We've seen an increase in anxiety. We've seen an increase in loneliness amongst men, low self-esteem, right? Because our self-esteem in a certain way is connected to those valuable relationships that we have. And again, the idea that I'm never going to reach that ideal of having that power and control and the man who needs to bottle up his emotions, that results in men not feeling very good about themselves and also then engaging in some risky behavior, substance abuse issues. So really a lot of mental health challenges because of this idea of toxic masculinity. And that's why, Walter, I am so thankful that you brought this up and given me a chance to address this today. Hope that was helpful. Let's move on to the next question. And that comes to us from Corinne. Dr. Buxani, my brother's wife, Stella, left him for another man and he's devastated. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Colby was a really gregarious guy, but he's become something of a hermit. Now, how can I stop him from isolating himself and help him build a support network? Wow, Corinne, I am so sorry to hear this. I am sure Colby is going through the motions of which sounds like a terrible breakup. Let's see how I can help you help Colby, right? Some things that you can do. Remind him of his strengths, right? We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. So remind him of his strengths to help boost his self-esteem. It's very hard, remember, to have social relationships if I'm not feeling good about myself. So when he's reminded of what he's good at, hopefully that will push him to boost his social relationships. Gently encourage him to reach out for support, but please do not push him, right? Let him take his time. Healing from a breakup is a journey that's very, very personal to every individual who's going through it. There is no formula that helps speed up the process. So please don't push him. Encourage him, but let him make the final decision. Respect his boundaries and allow him to heal at his pace. Don't judge. Don't ever judge, because again, that leads back to that idea of the toxic masculinity that we just spoke about, that you have to get up and get over it and, just stop talking about this, move on. We can't do that. So don't judge, and please validate his feelings. Again, one of the most healing things that we can do for anyone is validate what they're going through. I hope that was helpful. Let's move on. And we have another Facebook question. And this time it's from Serena. Hey, Dr. Buxani, my fiance Lincoln hasn't been himself lately. He's withdrawn, no appetite, not sleeping well, and listless. I guess my question for you is this: what are the common symptoms or most common mental health issues and symptoms that men face? Lovely, lovely question, Serena. I'm so glad. PBS has allowed this opportunity to talk about men's mental health, and I'm so excited about this question. Let's get into it. There are a lot of issues, mental health issues, that men face. The first one, and the most common, I would say, one of the most common, is depression, right? So what is depression? It's a feeling of persistent sadness, and we'll talk about that persistent piece in a bit. Fatigue, loss of interest, and hopelessness. Why the persistent part is important is because, remember, there are days we all feel that way, right? I mean, I got up this morning and I was not sure I had the energy to do this, right? So we all have days that we get up and we're tired, maybe we haven't slept well. That's not what depression is, right? So you have to have these symptoms for at least 2 weeks consistently to be able to be diagnosed with depression, right? Let's talk about the second one, anxiety, right? And depression and anxiety really do go hand in hand. When we see a person with depression, generally they will have symptoms of anxiety too. Some of the symptoms, not all, are excessive worry, restlessness, trouble concentrating, sweating, rapid heartbeat. There are about 30 more that I can give you, because anxiety really does show up different for different people. And that's okay, because all of this constitute, and remember, again, going back to, but I feel sometimes that I'm restless. I have brain fog sometimes. I have trouble concentrating. And all of us go through that, but it has to be persistent. It has to be for a minimum of 2 weeks consistently to be diagnosed as an anxiety disorder. Moving on, the third one is substance abuse. We see men dealing with this challenge of substance abuse, and that could include dependence on alcohol, drugs, or food to be able to cope with whatever stresses they're going through or the traumas. And a lot of them turn to this because, again, the idea of, okay, but men are not supposed to talk about issues, they kind of use substances to be able to cope with some of the stuff that they're going through. The fourth is suicidal ideation. Men are more likely to die by suicide than women. That's really because of the kinds of techniques they use for suicide. They're much more lethal than what women use. So not only do they have suicidal ideation, but men are more likely to die by suicide because they have completed suicides, right? Now, I'm strongly going to encourage you to please, if you know someone who is struggling with depression, with anxiety, not being able to discuss these things, and you sense that there's something going on, please go right ahead and ask them if they're going to, if they've ever thought of hurting themselves, if they have a plan for hurting themselves. So, somebody who's saying, hey, yes, I'm going to do this. I really don't want to live. And I've decided that, you know what, I'm going to use these pills, or I'm going to do it in this way. I'm, going to jump from X building. You know that there is a plan, and that's an emergency. You cannot take that lightly. You really do need to take them to a hospital and get them help immediately. Let's move on. We have the fifth one, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Lots of people who've gone through any sort of abuse, any sort of neglect, accidents, who've come back from combat, display signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. That includes flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety. It's very debilitating. So again, that's one of the things that we see men experiencing. And last but not the least, we have body image issues. Yes, this is not. And although we see a higher percentage of women with body image issues, men go through their share of obsession with their body image, which results in them having disordered eating, excessive exercise, and worst of all, steroid use, which is extremely harmful for them. Hope this gave some clarity. If you've got questions, we've got answers. And just in case you missed it the first couple of times, here's yet another chance for you to find out how to send in your questions.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.
Looks like we have another question from the Instagram. This time it's from Carlos. Dr. Buxani, I just graduated from college. I haven't been able to find a job yet. And yes, I'm the stereotypical Gen Zer who's still living at home. I'm not feeling too sociable at the moment, which is really unusual for me. I'm not loving the idea of seeing a shrink, but maybe I should. What do you think? Carlos, thank you for writing in. And yes, I always encourage anyone. Sounds like you're experiencing some symptoms. You're not enjoying the things that you used to enjoy before. So obviously there's something going on over here that's different for you. So I definitely encourage you to process this with a therapist, because something feels off, and maybe the therapist can help narrow it down and help you manage some of these feelings and emotions and get you back on track. Thank you so much, Carlos. Hope that was helpful. Our next question comes via YouTube from Trivan. Hey, Doc, my husband, Calvin, has been somewhat moody and aloof lately. I'm obviously familiar with the terms anxiety and depression, but I'm not exactly sure what they mean and what the range of symptoms are. Trivan, thank you so much for writing in. I really appreciate your question. It really helps bring clarity. Let's get into the symptoms of depression and anxiety in men. Some symptoms are irritability and anger, Remember, men display their emotions in different ways than women do, right? So a lot of irritability and anger can be really, a result of, depression or anxiety that they are feeling. Sleep issues, lack of interest, which we often see in men, and that's what we call anhedonia. And that's basically not enjoying something that I used to previously enjoy, right? So lack of interest in activities that I used to previously have fun with. Physical symptoms, aches, pains, gut issues, all can be a result of depression and anxiety. Increase in substance use, which we see commonly in men. Moving on, risk-taking behavior. And that, again, is something that we see a lot of men engage in. And that kind of makes them feel not very good because obviously the risk-taking behavior has consequences. Difficulty concentrating, excessive fatigue, feelings of hopelessness, which I think is key, and suicidal ideation, which we touched upon a little earlier. But feelings of hopelessness, I wanted to touch upon that just briefly because the loss of hope is what leads a lot of people to even contemplate suicide, right? So that feeling of hopelessness and keeping, an ear for it. And when you hear that in someone, almost always approaching that person with compassion and care to address that. I hope that was helpful. We've got another question coming in from allhealthtv.com. Let's see what the question is about. It's from Olivia, who says, "Hello, Dr. Buxani. My husband has been pretty anxious for a while now, and I've suggested he get therapy. He says he's not ready for that yet, whatever that means, but he's got to find a way to release his tension somehow. So my friend Stacy suggested that I get him to exercise. What are your thoughts on this, doctor?" Great question, Olivia. One that comes up so often, and here's my take on this. There is no one solution that works for everyone, right? So he really needs to figure out what he needs and what will help him. When I think about self-care, I really think about mind, body, and soul, right? So we can't only care for our body and then forget our mind and our soul. So ask him first, or what you need to do is write down a list of self-care options that work for all of these three categories. So it could be for the mind, things like, oh, I like reading, I like journaling. For the soul, I like hanging out with friends. And for the body, it could be things like nutrition and exercising. And at the moment when one feels overwhelmed is when I recommend to my clients, ask yourself, what do you need at that moment? Do I need to take care of my body? Do I need to take care of my mind? Or do I need to take care of my soul? And then pull out that list that you've already made and pull one self-care thing and do it, right? Because that's when we start healing and feeling better. So that's kind of my take on self-care. Hope that was helpful. Let's move on to the next question. And that question comes from Norton. Very quickly, Norton asks about how men can recognize burnout and what steps should they take to recover. Some of the symptoms of burnout include things like irritability, fatigue, the anhedonia that we talked about, the loss of interest in activities that I've previously enjoyed, difficulty concentrating, and the physical complaints, right? So we've heard this before, right? Sounds like what we discussed with depression, anxiety, and absolutely, because burnout and symptoms of depression, anxiety kind of collide, right? Okay, what do we do to cope with burnout? First, prioritize self-care. I just answered the question about self-care, and remember the mind, body, soul aspect that I talked about. As far as self-care is concerned, you really do need to take care of yourselves. And a big part of taking care of yourself is also setting boundaries, right? Healthy boundaries for yourself, knowing when to say no, and being your authentic self. Take breaks, please. We don't have to go, right? And again, going back to the pressures that men feel so very much, please shy away from those, run away from those, take care of yourself, and take breaks when you need it. And don't run away from seeking support from family, friends, or a therapist. All of those people can help with dealing with burnout, which is a very real and serious issue that men go through. Hope that was helpful. That's all the time that we have for today. Again, I'm Dr. Rachna Buxani-Mirpuri. We'll see you the next time on Ask the Doc.
Send in your questions to questions@allhealthtv.com or AllHealthGo on Facebook or YouTube, or visit the Ask the Doc page on our website, allhealthtv.com.